everyone, you're listening to Achieve Balance with Dr. Arminta, a show brought to you to help you be healthier, happier, and more vitalistic next year than you are this year. You can find us at achievebalancechiropractic.com/podcast. And you can find us on Facebook as well. We are looking forward to helping you be healthier in your future. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the show. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Achieve Balance with Dr. Arminta. And I'm so excited about today's podcast and today's guest because I have with me on the line Adrienne Nolan. She is a certified patient advocate and wellness advocate out of New York City. And she is the founder of WELLBE, which is a media company that is built to be focused on the intersection between wellness and healthcare, and was to inform, inspire, and empower you to take control of your health and demand a system that supports it, which I think is of utmost importance and of so much vitality. So tell us about your journey. What got you into this realm of understanding that chronic disease is something that can't be managed if we want to correct it? It has to be looked at as the root cause.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Arminta. And I just want to make sure that I say this for my husband's sake, but I actually hyphenated my name 2 years ago when I got married. So my full name is Adrienne Nolan-Smith. And I want to thank you so much for having me, because I believe that in addition to a lot of the content that I'm making and the stories and experts that I'm able to highlight and share, sharing my own journey and some of the proof, that comes from that and my experiences. And a lot of the things I had to learn the hard way will hopefully inspire others to take action to prevent chronic health issues from getting to the point where they kind of destroy their lives, or to take action to reverse things that they thought were a life sentence, which absolutely are not. So yeah, great to be here and great to share my story with you.
So WELLBE came out of your personal health journey and experience, and then you named the site title Get WELLBE.
All of our social channels and our website is Get WELLBE, which I actually love because there's a certain sense of taking action. And from what I've learned throughout my health journey and my work, that you really have to take control of your own health or be empowered in your health journey each and every day with every action that you take, or you will not have the outcomes that you want. So it's very much a personal experience, not kind of looking for somebody else to do it for you, unfortunately. And so I guess I'll start from the beginning, which is that my experience with integrative medicine, holistic health, whatever you want to call it, and wellness started about 20 years ago when I was first diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. Chronic Lyme basically means that it's been in your system long enough for antibiotics to not be able to get to it and kill the Lyme spirochete or Lyme bacteria. So the antibiotics that we tried didn't work, and I still had symptoms of Lyme. My symptoms were not nearly as severe as my brother, who was going through it at the same time. It was his diagnosis that actually made doctors test me. Having grown up in New York City, but spending our summers in a tiny town in Lyme, Connecticut was what did it, unfortunately. That's where Lyme disease was first discovered. And now it's in all 50 states and I think like 60 or 40 countries around the world. So it is not a Northeast problem anymore, but it certainly was, when it was first discovered. So we were pushed down a path of integrative medicine that my parents really didn't know anything about. They both grew up in, they were baby boomers. My mom was a Navy brat. They ate white bread and peanut butter and fluff sandwiches and bologna and all that stuff. They had no idea about the connection between food and toxic products and all that stuff and health and disease. So it wasn't until me and my brother were both really sick and the conventional doctors said, we tried the antibiotics, you're on your own, that my mom said, absolutely not, and really decided to take matters into her own hands. And we began this journey through all of these different kinds of practitioners and therapists and saw a whole new world of medicine. And it was very eye-opening because who you think you should trust and who's really reputable, usually we envision really clean offices, white coats, very polished people with Ivy League degrees on the wall. Like that's what we've been trained to think is a good doctor and somebody who can help you. And all of a sudden, the people who began to help us were pretty weird. They were kind of hippies and like woo woo, and they had incense in their office and like just stuff that, when you're little, you're like, these people are weird or whatever. And so, but lo and behold, it was all of these different kinds of treatments that started to really get us better. And we tried everything from, Chinese herbs and Chinese herbal teas, which smelled so bad. And we had to go to this herbalist in Flushing, New York and Queens to get them. And they stunk up our house and I had to drink them. They were so bitter, to really radically changing our diet. Back then we called it wheat free instead of gluten free. We really only ate like goat and sheep dairy if we ate it at all. We didn't really eat sugar, lots of things like that. And then we also did some more experimental treatments like hyperbaric oxygen therapy and also something called bovine colostrum therapy, which is still an orphan drug phase. So long story about doing that. But all of those things, after about 2 years, my Lyme was in remission, which basically means that, I stopped having symptoms. My symptoms were really extreme exhaustion and then memory loss. So I would, look at a piece of paper, see a number, and then within minutes not be able to recall that number, or within seconds rather. So a lot of other people who have had Lyme longer have severe joint pain, but I was really lucky I didn't have that. So that was when I was about 13 to 20 years old. I, was living a pretty healthy lifestyle because my parents kept making us eat this way. My brother and I, after this illness experience and me getting better, my parents were not, didn't want to just stop there. They realized the power of food as medicine and we kept doing it. We took a ton of supplements as well. So that was kind of tough as a kid, but I basically went to college. I went to Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. And when I got there, I began eating in the dining hall, like a lot of people do. And within 6 months of living in college and eating in the dining hall most of my meals, I lost my period. And I'd never lost my period since I'd gotten it for the first time when I was 12. And I, was really confused by it, but I didn't think too much of it. After about 6 months, I got really worried and I decided to start seeing a ton of doctors. So I began this journey that so many people listening, I'm sure, have gone through, which is marching around, getting different opinions, taking endless blood work, filling out endless forms, spending so much money. And essentially no doctor could figure it out. I went to tons of conventional endocrinologists and gynecologists, and they said, your blood work looks fine. Why don't you take the birth control pill? And, that'll bring it back or whatever. And I, luckily from my Lyme experience, was really well versed in being a very well researched patient. And so when I came back, when I started to dig into this, I said, absolutely not. I'm not taking the birth control pill. That's not going to get me a real period. That's a fake period. And it's also synthetic hormones, which might have, another effect on my body that's unforeseen. And I don't think that's a solution. I think that's a Band-Aid. So I'm really looking for solutions. If you can't help me, I'm going to keep moving. And that's what I did. I kept moving along. And luckily my father found me a naturopath in New York through, I don't know, somebody, but they had said that, a friend of his had said like their wife had this problem and, to go check them out. So I started seeing this woman, go in, same thing, incense. She has a really long ponytail. I'm like, where am I? But at that point I realized, gosh, people that can really help you look different. And you can't use cultural bias or stigma to determine from how somebody looks whether or not they're really a healer and whether or not they're really interested in getting to the root cause of your health issue. And so I, kind of put that behind me and started working with this woman, and she looked at my blood work so differently. And she really connected the dots between a couple of different things. One of which was that I had studied abroad in China when I was a junior in high school. So when I was 16, for 4 or 5 months, and lived with a host family. And, I'd gotten some GI issues when I was there, as many people who travel in Asia and especially China do from the water, which you can't drink. And so I think I had some legacy parasite bacteria type issues in my gut, and your gut really affects your hormones. And so that all you need is a hormonal imbalance and you can lose your period. So she brought that to my attention, and we started doing a lot of antiviral, antifungal, anti-parasite type Chinese herbal treatments, and taking a ton of supplements, and going back to a very strict diet, trying to avoid gluten, only drinking filtered water, trying to avoid processed foods and sugar. And she said, if you do this treatment for 6 months, you'll get your period back. And lo and behold, 6 months and a day later, it came back, and it's been totally normal ever since, coming, every 28 to 32 days for 13 years. And that was, I think, the second biggest eye opener besides my Lyme experience to what was really wrong with the healthcare system, and that there was this whole other world of people that were truly healing and getting rid of health problems in the most holistic way, which is just really harnessing the power of your own immune system. And most people weren't seeing them. They were taking the birth control pill forever. And then, maybe they're 30 years old and they want to get pregnant and they go off of it. And whatever that problem was that was causing their period to disappear 10 years before has now gotten worse because it was being masked. Mm-hmm. And maybe they can't get pregnant. And maybe they also have created a bunch of other issues. And maybe they're, on their way to having PCOS or ovarian cancer or whatever it might be. And I thought this was really disturbing, and also really something that needed to be brought to the forefront of the conversation around healthcare reform. The third biggest chapter in my life that's brought me to where I am today was, of course, when things start to go well, something else falls apart, right? And so I got my period back in February of 2006. And by July of 2006, my mom had a massive manic episode. And obviously those two things were unrelated, but just closely timed. And it happened when I was home in New York for the summer, and when I was with my two brothers. And she ended up thinking that we were trying to kill her and having crazy paranoia and delusions, and ended up running away from us through the New York City subway system all the way to Queens. And we ended up having to have, one of my brothers restrain her and put her in the back of a cop car and send her to some New York City jail / mental facility, which I had no experience with. So I had no idea how bad it would be. And it really was that bad. But we didn't know, really what to do. And it was the middle of the night. So that's what we did. And it started, really a nightmare 5 years of my life. I don't know if anybody listening has had experience with the mental health care system in America, but the approach is generally drug the heck out of the patient until they can't harm themselves or somebody else. And then just kind of keep doing that. So
they manage it to that point. That's where they've done their job in their eyes, which is not healthcare. It's the broken system.
Yes. So essentially they gave her so many antipsychotics and antidepressants and all this stuff that she was really a vegetable. And she was drooling and shaking from all of the side effects and gaining weight, and she couldn't sleep. And I don't want to say that this was completely out of the blue, because there were signs for years that this may have come to a head in this way, but she'd never had any sort of like a manic episode where she thought that we were trying to kill her or like, anything like that before. It was more like she'd suffered from, sort of extremes of high-low, some depression. And so looking back, I think there's so much we could have done way before it got to this point. But the time when she had the manic episode, she was 55 years old. And from what I understand about the different things that contributed to her mental illness, it was basically just a buildup. And then my parents had divorced about 2 years before the manic episode occurred. And I think that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back as far as trauma and stress. And it just, it all fell apart from there. So because my parents had divorced, my uncle was put in charge as her legal guardian, and I'm the only girl in my family, so I was sort of helping from the kids' perspective to really coordinate her care and stay on top of it. And I think that's a burden a lot of women take on, whether they're caring for elderly parents or their children or their spouses, or just themselves, or even a close friend or their sister. They're making most of the healthcare decisions. They're feeling the most guilty and responsible, and it's really I hate to say, a caretaker burden that's not properly appreciated or recognized, but it's real, and it falls heavily on women. So I'm, just graduating from college. I'm trying to like start a career, figure out my life, like all of that, and dealing with this on the side. And she was in and out of different inpatient programs in DC, in New York, in Boston. It was at least 6 different programs. And finally, when I was 25, she took her life. And it was a couple of days before Christmas, and I had decided, I was working at IBM at the time, and I had decided to apply to business school because I knew that IBM wasn't my calling. And I'd been the friend in my high school group and my college group who was, kind of a nut for integrative health and wellness, and they knew nothing about it. But I was the one that they would all make fun of for my supplements and my funny diet and all of my different, acupuncturists and all this stuff that they never, ever did any of. And I never thought of it as something that I would actually end up being my career. It was just sort of a personal hobby interest, and I was really fascinated by it because of the things that I'd gone through. And I think, like a lot of people, once you get the bug and once you really see the power of integrative medicine and food as medicine, you can't help but keep learning and keep improving your diet and keep improving your household products and the people that you see for care and all that. You can't help it. It's like a Pandora's box, I think. And so at the moment when she died, I was writing my business school applications, and I didn't know how I would finish any of them because, I obviously was shocked and really traumatized. But I told myself, if I get even one of these out the door and I get in, I'm going to go and I'm going to use it as the opportunity to change my career path and dedicate the rest of my life to transforming the healthcare system by helping people to see that there's another way. And I believe that when there's demand, there's supply. And when we put the power of everybody's health back in their own hands, and they start seeing the kinds of practitioners and doctors who are really interested in healing and getting to the root cause of health issues rather than just band-aiding them or giving them something for symptoms that's temporary, or even if it's long-term, it's going to have other consequences and side effects and things like that, then the system will have to take notice and begin to change. And young doctors will see the success of those cases and see also how much happier practitioners and doctors are when they can actually heal patients. Physician burnout in America is a huge crisis, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they're not really able to practice good medicine. I am not talking at all about the emergency situation. When you are in an acute situation, there's nothing better on earth than the Western healthcare system, and we would all take it. Everybody in the world would take going to an American emergency room following, a car accident or eating some sort of getting E. coli or something like that, where you're literally your life is on the line. But for everything else, which is 80% of all of our healthcare costs, the chronic disease situation, the autoimmune situation, even these tick-borne illness situations, the Western approach, it doesn't have a healing aspect. It has a symptom management aspect. So really a disease care system, not a healthcare system. And so once people start to have that kind of success, they can inspire younger doctors to learn this way, to go take integrative medicine fellowships and to really convert their practices and also convert our hospitals and all of our different entities. I believe it's a a system-wide impact once people begin to demand better. And the best way to demand better is with your money. And so when you can actually see different kinds of people and use different kinds of brands is when the entire system has to take notice. And so that's what I was determined to work on. And unfortunately, in the beginning, I was decided, I'm going to work on it from the inside. And so when I graduated from business school, there was nobody talking about integrative medicine that wasn't already a practitioner that I could see. So there wasn't really a business of wellness or, wellness publications. There wasn't even Instagram. Now Instagram is everything for the integrative health community. That's where everybody's connecting. And I'm seeing terrific functional medicine doctors pop up on my feed all the time that I'm so happy that they're doing their work, that, and these different practitioners and acupuncturists, all that stuff. And before all of that, I didn't really know how to find them. So I went into work in the conventional healthcare system with hospitals for 3 years. I worked in health tech. So I had clients that were large health systems. Conveniently or coincidentally, I was working on programs for chronic disease patients to make sure that they don't, come back to the hospital and to try to get them, better. Of course, that really for my company meant just giving them a call and telling them to fill the prescriptions and get a follow-up appointment, which doesn't heal anybody. It just means you take drugs forever. So I thought that was pretty disappointing. And after a while, I realized I'm not making any significant change here. I'm really just part of the problem. So eventually, 3 years after I first started, I quit and I started to work on WELLBE. And I decided to start it as a media company. It's sort of evolved into a media and lifestyle brand. We're working on a number of different resources and services to help our community with other parts of this that they're asking for besides content, which is really exciting. But content was really important for me to start with because I felt like I knew a lot of really well-educated people with means who were still making terrible decisions about their health because of a lack of awareness and education and because of cultural bias and stigma. And so I thought, let's rebrand this whole thing with a lot of research to support it, with a lot of stories of patients that are really, really inspiring and to show them that they were just normal people too, like lawyers and accountants and marketing executives and whatever, who didn't think of themselves as being really, woo-woo or whatever, but just wanted to get better and had some really intense condition. And when they did, it really opened their eyes. And so that's what I did. I started filming these stories of health recovery with real people, real patients. I started filming experts that, I both in the healthcare system and the wellness movement. So a lot of like functional MDs and integrative dentists and things like that, and making a lot of guides and articles that really dug into research and showed you that if anybody ever says that, oh, acupuncture, that's not science, well, that's just not true anymore. And, really showing you the science that supports it. So that's what I'm doing. And yeah.
When was WELLBE established on?
WELLBE was established, it launched July of 2017.
And since then, you have created all of this amazing information and commonly used products, because you've got commonly used products that you use on the website, and stories and podcasts and a wealth of information to share with people so that they don't have to go and try to dig through the minutia of the internet or finding resources, because they can go to one place of getwellbe.com and start getting some solid information to help them on their wellness journey or their discovery of how their body is actually made to be healthy. And it's created that way. And as long as we start to fulfill the deficiencies that we create and remove the toxicities that we're exposed to, that their bodies can actually do what they're meant to do, which is, get well, be.
Like, yes, exactly.
It is such an amazing thing. When we started to talk about this, I started to look through your site and your information. It's very in depth. It's very thorough. And so what are your next steps with this? Because not only have you gone through this and you've created this media company, but now you are a certified patient advocate as well, which gives you the ability to help coach people along their journey and teach them how to be advocates for themselves, because that's one of the biggest things, is to give them back control over their health and their lifestyle and change the mindset that you have more ability to change your health outcomes than you've ever been taught that you could.
Absolutely. Yeah. So in July of 2018, on our first birthday, we also launched the WELLBE podcast. So that was a big, exciting thing that we did. And now that's off and running as well. But the next things that I have planned for WELLBE really involve, excuse me, people who are trying to then take action and make changes. So, content is fantastic for awareness and for people who are just starting to think differently, and to just, continue to inform people about things that they may not have known about before, or a different way of thinking about something. But once people are really ready to take action and, find an acupuncturist in their area that's, specializes in, let's say, infertility, which is their issue, or they'd like to see an integrative psychiatrist who's going to help to treat a mental health issue without, medications, or whatever it might be that you're looking for, a gut specialist or something. How do you find people that are good? And it's kind of overwhelming. If you just go to Google, you end up just finding those that are the best at the SEO game, or who are, have a flashy website or something like that, instead of who's actually really, really good at this particular issue that I have and has had a track record of healing others that I trust, who know what they're doing as far as informed and empowered patients. So we're helping to develop some resources and services around that. And then also, like you said, it's not just about seeing one acupuncturist is going to solve all your issues. There's so much that goes into the day-to-day keeping up with things that can heal you and keep you well. So how can you be there for your community to continue when they stumble, to answer questions when they have them about different challenges they're having throughout their, journey and treatment plan, and new things that might come up. But then also, how do you help evaluate the different decisions? So, there's a handful of ways that you could treat Lyme disease, for example. Like what are all the different ones? What do they cost? Where are they? What's covered by insurance? Like what's most effective? What should I try first? There's a lot of things, and you can get really disheartened when you're on the path or the journey and you try the fourth thing and it still doesn't work, and you have a full-time job and maybe you have a child, and it's too much to think of going back to the drawing board and trying your fifth treatment, and maybe that doesn't work. And from the stories that I've filmed, I can tell you it's often like the 14th doctor that solves a problem for somebody, or the 12th, or the 7th. So to think that you're going to get to the root cause of a really, a kind of a phantom illness, or a very complicated autoimmune condition or something like that, no, it's really a longer journey than most people realize. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't take it. It just means that you need to have perseverance, and it means that you really have to have faith that you will get to the bottom of it and you will heal it. And not every single, even integrative or functional practitioner or doctor is the right one. Sometimes their approach is just a little bit off, and so it might have worked for somebody else, but you got to keep trying, and then you'll get to the right one. You absolutely will. And it may even be a combination of things. Certainly for my Lyme thing, when I got over that, I'm still not sure which of the treatments was the most effective, because I was sort of doing like 4 or 5 at once. But I know that cocktail of things really worked, as far as the oxygen and the diet and the herbs and the supplements and the whatever. So I almost don't care. All I know is that it works. So that's really what I'm going to be working on, to serve my community further than the content that we're providing in the next couple of months.
That is so exciting. So exciting. One of the things that you touched point on that I really wanted to help us wrap up our call with is that when somebody is going through finding that phantom illness, or what is going on, why is my body not healing or responding like it needs to get out of the mindset that this needs to happen right now. Our industry is like how we teach people in our society is that quick fix mentality. And one of the things is they don't restore hope, that they don't give hope to the individuals that they're created to heal. And that's one thing that we are really big on, and that I noticed on your website, is that you're continuing to provide hope to the individuals, that their answer is out there and they can keep searching for it, and their body is made to heal as long as you find that answer. And I'm really excited and encouraged by the fact that you're out there advocating not only for your community in New York, but this is becoming much broader and much wider with the media company. And what a great way to help bring light to integrative medicine and natural health care, and actually approaching the cause of the problem instead of the symptom of the problem. And so they can get a hold of you if they've got questions they can probably email hello@getwellbe.com, I'm assuming.
That's a great place to reach us. And then also we're pretty active on Instagram, so you can always message us on Instagram. It's @getwellbe. Those would be the best two places. Yep.
Well, I look forward to watching more of what you develop and how you help sow into the lives of patients and people and empower them that they are their best wellness advocate that they can be. And so thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and this episode, so we can bring more awareness here in mid-Missouri to what you guys are doing there, and bring more hope to our listeners as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Hi guys, Dr. Arminta here. Thank you so much for listening. I hope today's episode brought you information to help you eat better, move better, think better, and take care of the true root of your health issues. You can find us online at achievebalancechiropractic.com/podcasts, and you can find us on social media as well. We look forward to having you here the next episode, and we look forward to helping you create a healthier future tomorrow.